All right, my friends, welcome back to All Cars Reacts. It is time for a new Motorweek reaction video. This is all the way back from 1986, the Alfa Romeo GTV-6. I've had this one on the list for a long time, and I think you'll figure out why here in a second. So, as always, it's just you and me reminiscing a little bit. Get comfy in the comfy chair. Grab yourself a beverage of choice. It is early in the morning, and this is some decaf today. And so let's get into it, see what Motorweek had to say unbelievably 40 years ago.
We have a car that'll do the same thing. It's the Alfa Romeo GTV-6. Now, Alfa Romeo has always sold cars that were a little bit different. Alfa's has suited a select few, maybe too few. They only sold 3,700 cars here last year. But the company's got big plans for the U.S. market. For openers, it's updated a few familiar models, including the GTV-6. After 12 years of production, the GTV still proves in some ways that different can be better, starting with its lines. They were so handsome in the beginning that they've refused to age. Over the years, there have been a few outside changes, a spoiler here, some matte black paint there, just to keep up with the trends. And for 1986, the GTV gets new wheels and tires, but more about them later.
All right, let's talk about the styling. First off, isn't it unbelievable? This was 12 years old. It's astonishing. I think this is an absolutely gorgeous car. Now, I'm going to say a couple things that you're probably going to think are a little unfair, and you may be wondering where the heck I'm coming from. But start with, I think this is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I really would have to pick at it. Like maybe behind the rear wheel, maybe that's just a little too much length back there. The sunroof was kind of small. I mean, we're talking about really nitpicky things here. Overall, this is one of the most memorably beautiful cars of the 80s and before, in my oh-so-humble opinion. And I think it's because this is 86. It's a little rounded, right? It's wedgy, it's clean lines, but it's also just a little rounded. I love this car. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Funny, they did say at the beginning that Alfa has big plans for the U.S. market. I wonder how that turned out. Anyway, the funny thing about this car is it reminds me of two other cars. The first is the Scirocco, all right, which personally, I love the Scirocco. But also, don't hate on me in the comments for this one. It reminds me of the Chevy Citation. And that's what makes this kind of amazing to me, because I think the X-body cars, the Citation and things like, I think that was a really, really good looking car. I'm almost unique in that feeling, but I really think it's a good looking car. I really like the Scirocco and later the Corrado. But this, it just looks a little more finished. It's the difference between Chevy and Alfa. Everything here is just, well, it's the difference between American and Italian too, right? It's just a little more sensuous. I love it, and I love the wheels on it. Let's see what they say about the engine.
The engine's been updated too since our 1982 test of the Alfa, but not in the typical 80s GT fashion. For a change, they haven't stuck on a turbocharger. Just plain old revised fuel injection for the overhead cam 2.5-liter V6. It makes 154 horsepower now at 5,500 RPM and 152 pound-feet of torque. But numbers alone don't begin to do the Alfa engine justice.
So before they move on there, let's talk about the engine. I have a love-hate relationship with Alfa. Not just this car, just in general. I guess what I'm struggling with here is I don't ever see a situation other than being able to say, I bought an Alfa, to get something over, say, a BMW or a Mercedes. Is this engine reliable? I honestly don't know. Is it mechanically durable? I don't know. But it's Italian, which means I just naturally don't trust it. Same thing with the electronics. I mean, an Italian car to me is none of the engine reliability with all of the electrical problems. So I don't know about the powertrain and how it actually holds up. I know, well, actually, I didn't think it was terribly pretty either. But, you know, if you know more about the mechanicals of this car and, hey, either it was trash or it was the best thing ever, share it below. Let us know in the comments. But in terms of power, I thought that was pretty strong. I really did. For the time, I really did.
They don't tell you how evenly this normally aspirated engine pulls to its 6,500 RPM redline, or how well it responds to the throttle. Very evenly, very quickly. The quarter mile went by in 16.5 seconds at an 82 mile per hour terminal speed. Shorter sprints were just as lively. A 0 to 60 run took just 9.8 seconds. Our only complaints, too much rear end squat when the power was applied. And passing time is only average, 5 seconds from 40 to 55, the result of a tallish high-speed third gear. The brakes are more than up to the speed that the Alfa can generate. With ventilated disc up front and inboard mounted disc at the rear, stops were short and consistent. From 55 miles per hour, they averaged 112 feet with no fade, but the pedal worked best with a heavy foot. Positive response.
Before they go on here to the slalom, I've got no problem with those results. Absolutely none, and I'm ecstatic over that braking result. Love the fact that they had that spider sitting in the background. Oh, love that car. Maybe I'm an Alfa fan.
Response seems to be the GTV's trademark. The steering is unhindered by power assist. Sure, it's a little heavy, but it always lets you know exactly what the front tires are doing. Positive steering is almost a necessity since the GTV-6 reacts to a turn with mild plow, followed by some lightness in the rear end as the body rolls to the suspension stops. Ditto the reaction to our 55 mile per hour lane change, front end plow followed by tail twitch with more emphasis on the latter. Nothing dangerous, mind you, but a quick charge in the Alfa is best left to experienced hands. Overall cornering traction is fairly high, thanks in part to the stickier Pirelli P6 tires that Alfa switched to for 86, and thanks to another Alfa difference. Unlike any car in its class, the GTV-6 has a Porsche-like transaxle at the rear, giving it near 50-50 weight distribution. Of course, that also
now, before they go to the interior, what is this car? I ask that because it's not a hardcore sports car. You know, they comment about it's twitchy when you do the lane change maneuver. But it's an Alfa, so it's above something else that's just hopped up. This is and it's not just a two-door version of a four-door car, right? Like a 3 Series, but it's just a two-door. This is an interesting car that, again, I think is gorgeous. But it seems to be splitting the difference between a couple of different things. It's not hardcore performance. It looks a little too rolly, right? But it's not a soft cruiser either. Maybe it's a GT car. Could be. See the interior.
Means the gear linkage runs to the back of the car, which usually makes for a vague shift lever. But Alfa redesigned the linkage last year. Now the lever is like a good front drive shifter. And that brings us to the interior. Our car had the optional leather upholstery, and all seats offer very good side and back support. But the luxury of it all will be lost on backseat passengers who'll have a lot of trouble getting in and out, to say nothing of sitting still for even short trips. The driver will also have a rough time of it. Though the steering wheel is adjustable, most of us are still left with the famous and uncomfortable straight arm, bent leg Italian driving position. And adding insult to injury, the windows don't go all the way down. The dash is more a collection of parts than a comprehensive control center. Markings for the heat and air conditioning are confusing, and you have to open dash vents by hand. But all the right gauges are there, even though you have to look away from the road to see them. The main gauges are easier to see, and the tack for one is right in front of the driver. Even if you could get someone to sit in the back seat, long trips in the Alfa are still only for two. You need the rear seat for the luggage that can't be squeezed into the trunk. Yet in other ways, the Alfa...
Before they go on there, what to say there? I guess the seats look glorious. They are beautiful, and they look comfy. They look soft. I want to put my hands on those seats. They look so low. they look super, super low. And I like what they said about the dash is more like a collection of parts. I appreciate they said it so that I didn't have to. First off, the gauges in the middle, those are little octagons. Come on. I love that. But overall, the interior, for as pretty as the seats look, and they spoke highly about the transaxle. I like that. The dash, it's from a different era. That dash does not scream luxury to me at all. That screams 10 years old. I just, that is an old looking dash. That's what I'm trying to say. And apparently it is. So, I watching that interior, I can't help but be reminded that the new Taurus was coming out in 1986. And I'm not saying that anybody's cross-shopping this Alfa versus a Ford Taurus, but I am saying that is a stark reminder of how far the Taurus was, how good it was, and its dash. So I'll stop harping on that now.
Alfa is well suited to a cross-country trek. On the interstate, it holds true to all the traditional GT Gran Turismo virtues. The ride is comfortable, if a little firm, and the car has an almost gyroscopic stability. The faster it goes, the surer it feels. And a 72 dB sound level, about average at 55, isn't too much of a deterrent for steady cruising. And neither is...
No, I'll just disagree with that. Decibels are logarithmic, if I remember correctly. So the difference between 66 and 68 is much different than the difference between 64 and 66. So a lot of these cars that we've watched where they did do decibel readings, they were often in like the 68, 69 range. So that's really kind of loud. So, maybe you're not buying it for isolation. That's not the point here with the steering and the handling, the firm ride. So maybe for the target market, that's just not an issue at all. But to me, noise inside the car screams not luxury.
Is the Alfa's fuel mileage. The EPA estimates the GTV-6 at 19 city and 26 highway, and our test confirms that range. So at $16,500 a copy, the Alfa GTV-6 is a car that's much more than the sum of its parts. It has near-timeless styling, velvet power, handling capabilities to please any enthusiast, and road-gripping brakes. Unfortunately, it still hangs on to a mishmash of creature discomfort features. There's that unnatural driving position. The back seat's a joke, and there's limited luggage space. But the Alfa Romeo GTV-6 does please the senses. It's special mostly because it's such a nonconformist. Its popularity will probably still be limited to a few, but they may be among the most fortunate.
Okay, that's the kind of car that really speaks to me, and they kind of nailed it there. I don't know if I'd be happy with that driving position for a long time, but their description, right? Almost timeless styling, velvety engine, and it's a little quirky That's the kind of thing that appeals to me. You buy that car because you walk just a little bit different. You're not buying a 3 Series, right? You're buying something different that is different and comes with limitations. That really appeals to me in what I think is a classically beautiful car. I really do. That being said, it's interesting nowadays when I look at Alfa and, think about Cadillac, BMW, Mercedes, and then an Alfa. And the Alfas, they tend to be really good, but you don't have to go very far to find people who they have little quirks with it, little electrical gremlins, or just little things like, I want to say that the dash like cuts into the opening when you get in and out, something like that. Am I thinking of the Giulia? It's one of those things that there'll be days where I'm like, you know what, maybe I buy an Alfa. Maybe I just do it, right? Love my Accord, but maybe I go get something that expresses. And then I start thinking about warranty, and I think about the fact that other cars are just better overall. But one thing I've said on this channel over and over again is when I look at cars, is that cars can be good, but they don't feel special, right? You think about Infinitis, for example, or Acuras. When I talk about them, I think the Acura TL is a good car, but it doesn't feel special to me. This is a car that has some quirks, but it was special. If we went back to 1986 and I was an adult and had $16,000, $17,000 burning a hole in my wallet, would I get this? I don't know. But would I be proud to have it? Absolutely. Love this car. Absolutely love this car. And I would love to hear your comments below. Thank you so much for spending just a few minutes with me here today.